people have caught COVID-19 over the last year or so, and while most have recovered, some are left with lingering issues, especially in their lungs. So, Kelli Goatley-Seals with the Washington County Health District is here to talk about lung health in general. Kelli, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. Now, lung health, I imagine, has got to be top of mind right now, given that COVID is a respiratory illness and has some lasting effects. Are you anticipating any major shifts in public health or big issues because of this?
Well, we've seen a lot of new things in public health. A lot of spotlights have been shown on different aspects of public health. I work in chronic disease prevention, and so we talk a lot in my program about tobacco and tobacco cessation and preventing exposure to secondhand smoke. So that's received a lot of attention. I work with chronic disease prevention, and so preventing all these lung illnesses, which COVID plays a role in, has also been really key. So I think we are going to see a lot of things continuing after we start recovering from COVID.
Is it something to be concerned about like the overall health of the population, do you think?
Absolutely. When we have something like COVID, we do see that a certain population has ongoing health issues. COVID is a respiratory illness, so we see people that experience pneumonia and acute respiratory distress syndrome. And some of those can be critical, and some people can have those lasting effects. So it's something that may impact people's health on an ongoing basis.
The people who already had respiratory issues were more at risk when it comes to contracting COVID, and that includes smokers, right?
Exactly. The CDC tells us that smokers are a group that is additionally at risk, as well as those people that have chronic health conditions. And smoking tends to lead to more chronic health conditions, so a lot of it is related.
How many smokers do we have in Nevada? I mean, I feel like growing up here, we got nothing but like smoking prevention education and all that. Is it still a widespread thing here?
Well, that's something that I like to ask people what they think the percentage of smokers is, and it's interesting what I hear. And I find that a lot of times what people's perception is kind of tells me where they're at, what they are exposed to. But what the data tells us when we do those surveys is that 85% of people here in Nevada, on average, do not smoke.
Okay, so that's actually the last time I covered this, and I don't know how many years ago this was, we were at about 18 to 19% of the population smoke. So it seems like the number's going down.
We have been decreasing for decades. That's correct.
Well, that's good news.
Mm-hmm. That is good news. What we have seen is in the past 10 years or so an increase of use of e-cigarettes and vaping, particularly among youth. Our youth smoking rates have dropped very low in the state, but the number of youth that vape and try e-cigarettes has been increasing, and so a lot of teens are exposed to nicotine in that way now.
Interesting. Now, vaping was kind of originally billed as this healthier alternative to traditional smoking. Does that still hold up?
We talk about vaping potentially being a healthier option for adults who smoke combustible cigarettes, but when we're talking about youth, that doesn't hold true. A lot of youth are picking up e-cigarettes as their first exposure to nicotine. They've never been smokers of combustible cigarettes, but now all of a sudden they're picking up these nicotine devices and becoming addicted to them. So for youth, not at all. We don't consider it a healthy option. For some adults who smoke, we may think that that's better for them.
What are the health risks for teens then?
Well, when we talk about COVID, there are health risks related to vaping. So there's health risks related to vaping on their own. Teens that become addicted can have impacts to their mood. They do become addicted to nicotine, which is problematic. And there was a recent study that showed that teens that vape are 5 times more likely to get COVID. And youth and young adults that both vaped and smoked, because some people have dual use, they were 7 times more likely to get COVID. Again, all of this is related.
Why would they be more likely to get COVID?
Well, when we think about how vaping and smoking impacts the body, we're taking those substances into our lungs, and it impacts those little sacs in our lungs, alveoli, and it makes us more vulnerable. And so I don't know exactly the mechanism, but the study shows that vaping has made these young people more susceptible to COVID.
Huh. I was wondering if it was an immune issue, like you're saying, or if it was an exposure issue, like the behavioral thing. But that's interesting. I hadn't heard that. Okay, so I understand there are quite a few campaigns underway to try to reduce teen use of vaping products, and part of what's tricky about this is that a lot of parents probably don't even know what it looks like, what like a fake pen, because it's easy to conceal. I mean, it could look like a
It can look like a pen, and it can be hidden, and there's backpacks and sweatshirts and all kinds of things that kids can use and hide materials, and yeah, so parents may not see it. So the first step for parents is understanding what it is, and also understanding that it can have some negative health impacts, and learning about that. We have a website called Let's Talk Vaping, where parents and adults that are in youth's lives can learn more about it.
Okay, and then so it's maybe having the conversation with your kid, because you're not probably gonna be able to smell it. I mean, a lot of times it smells like fruit.
And that's one of the clues, is smelling something that doesn't smell normal, that might have a fruity smell. But it's not going to be like that smoke smell that's back in the days clued parents in.
Okay. And then the other campaign that's going on in Nevada right now is reducing secondhand smoke exposure. And are the casinos then like the big target of this?
Well, we have our Nevada Clean Indoor Air Act. For folks that have been in the state for a while can remember that back in 2006, we were able to get smoking out of places like restaurants. I was born and raised in Nevada, and I remember going into our grocery stores and people smoking in grocery stores because they had the gaming there. And so the few places that are exempt from our Clean Indoor Air Act are standalone age-restricted bars, casinos and gaming establishments, strip clubs, and a few other places. And so yeah, those places that still allow smoking inside, they have exposure to their employees of secondhand smoke, and everybody that walks into those locations are also exposed to secondhand smoke.
How much secondhand smoke exposure, at what point does it become a health risk?
It is dose related, but there's lots of data and information out there. We're fairly familiar, most people are fairly familiar with the risks of smoking, but a lot of people aren't aware how damaging secondhand smoke can be. There's data that shows us that heart disease, people that are exposed to secondhand smoke are 25 to 30% higher risk for heart disease, 20 to 30% higher risk for stroke, and 20 to 30% higher risk for lung cancer. So even for people that don't smoke but have that secondhand smoke exposure are at risk for significant health issues.
So the major concern there is people who work in these establishments, and it's not a choice necessarily to go in and be a customer, they're just around it all day.
Definitely, people that work in these types of locations are at risk, but there's data that shows that for every 4 hours that somebody spends in a smoke-filled environment, their nicotine level in their body increases 4.5 times. So it has impacts for even a night out at a location that has secondhand smoke.
So is there legislation on the table to ban this in these places, or what's the end goal?
So it can be done at the state level. Our current law is a statewide law, but our state law also allows for local jurisdictions to pass laws that are more strict than the state law. So currently there is a campaign, Smoke Free Truckee Meadows. There's lots of great information on the website that is promoting this in our community here in Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County.
Okay, so that could be something that like the city council would pass?
City Council, Board of County Commission, exactly.
Is there support for that, you think?
There is support. We have collected a lot of data, and there has been support measured over the years, and a recent study showed that about 67% do support smoke-free casinos and bars in our area.
So that's voters, but not necessarily elected representatives?
That's right. But elected representatives are influenced hopefully by our voters.
Interesting. All right. Now, for those who are smokers and would like to quit, I know there are some resources available. Let's talk about it.
We have a 1-800-QUIT NOW number. It's the Nevada Tobacco Quit Line. And if people want to quit smoking, there's trained coaches that help people through that. That service, most people qualify for nicotine replacement therapy, things like the patch and the lozenges. And for people aged 18 to 21, they can be eligible for Chantix, and that's the medication that sometimes can be very expensive. Federal legislation passed last year, and so now people have to be 21 in order to, you can only sell tobacco to somebody 21 or older. And so that age range of 18 to 21 now, 18 up until age 20, cannot smoke. So there's even extra help for that age range to quit smoking.
Okay, well, is there anything else, in all this that you'd like people to know about, anything in this?
There's an additional cessation resource for teens, My Life, My Quit. Again, the Let's Talk Vaping website, there's lots of resources. Smoke Free Truckee Meadows, lots of online information for people to learn more and figure out how to become involved.
All right, Kelli, well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, well, coming up on Face the State, not many people have ever seen the state of Nevada like my next guest. Meet a long-range horseback rider who's about to embark on a major adventure right after the break.